to me, when I watch it, what makes it such an extraordinary film is that the specificity of Vietnam, it's way bigger than that. It's a sort of archetype, like Heart of Darkness. It's an archetypal film. The river is all rivers. The boat is all boats. And I think that's what I keyed into as a teenager without realizing, is that we were all, as a group of friends, we were watching these people on this boat, going on this adventure, not knowing quite what the future was, and in a way, in that adolescent male way, where one's very interested in apocalypse and mortality and things like that. I think that there was something about this film that we keyed into, you know.
So one of the things we like to do in the Screen Epiphanies is just to talk to people about their kind of early memories of cinema. And I know your dad is an actor, so I don't know whether that kind of affects your kind of early days of going to see films and so forth. But did you as a family go to the cinema often, or did you watch a lot of stuff on TV? Or
my father introduced me to a lot of westerns, and I remember his favourite films and his favourite movie stars. And this would be largely on TV, but there seemed to be westerns on Saturday afternoons, obviously, and then any Bogart film, any Jimmy Cagney film, any Edward G. Robinson film, and then also the Marx Brothers. So he introduced me in a way to a classic Hollywood education, as it were. But and talking to him now, I know that the cinema, the palatial, red-carpeted, red-draped cinema of the 1930s was a magical place for him. And I know that when he started working in movies, there was an element of being overawed by the fact that he was now on the other side of that industry. So I know that, you know, cinema occupied a huge part of our childhood in that respect.
And would you go to any of the kind of the premieres or so forth as a child?
Well, my brother's here today, and he may remember this differently, but I don't remember ever being invited to any premiere ever. You know.
So what we normally do is we usually ask the person who's going to come and do the Screen Epiphany for 2 or 3 choices, because sometimes for the rights reasons or getting the right print. But on this one, you were absolutely adamant on. It wasn't just Apocalypse Now; it had to be Apocalypse Now Redux. Yeah. And actually, there wasn't even a second choice there.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's fine. But you were very, you were very determined. That was to be. I mean, were there other films that you did think of at the time?
Yeah. It's an impossible thing to be asked to choose a film, and I suppose the criterion that I used was a film that really benefits from being seen in a large format. I could have chosen The Passenger, that fantastic film, The Passenger, which I love, but I have seen that on large screen format. The big reveal here is that I've never seen the Redux version. I saw Apocalypse Now, with friends of mine, again, a couple of them are here now. We used to watch it obsessively on video cassette, and I've seen it possibly 10 times on video cassette, and it's an eminently quotable film. And as is the way when you're like 15, 16, 17, we saw it in about, the first time I would guess about 1983, so about 4 years after it was released. And we became obsessed with it, and obsessed with quoting it, and then obsessed with the legends surrounding it. And then subsequently also with the documentary Hearts of Darkness, which is one of the great film documentaries. And I always thought, well, one day I'll get around to seeing this on the big screen. And then the Redux version came out. I've got to see that. And I was away working, and I didn't see it. So to me, this is a huge treat that I'm going to see the final, the Redux version.
So we're anticipating Epiphany here rather than actually...
You might hear my Epiphany. You might. I might have the Epiphany very vocally at some point. I thought, shall I watch it? Because always before speaking about something, you sort of feel that you should revise or something. And I thought, shall I watch Apocalypse Now, not the Redux version? And in the end, I decided not to. And instead, I read Heart of Darkness. And I have an appalling memory for plot and character. I watch films, and something happens to me so often with films. There's something that I'm actually absorbing atmosphere and sort of texture of a film, way more than I'm paying attention to why people are doing things. It's almost like the world of the film is far more important to me than the specifics of why they're doing what they're doing. It's just the way I've watched film. But rereading Heart of Darkness, there's two things to say. One is I was struck by what an extraordinary... It's obviously a transposition of the Belgian Congo to... or the Congo, to Vietnam. So there's obviously that going on with Coppola, that he recognised similarities, or he used it as a structure. But there's also this sense of what an absolutely fantastic adaptation of that novella the book is, because as I was reading the novella, scenes from the film began to sort of bloom in my head, and I went, oh, I remember all of this film, in a way that I really don't remember a lot of films that I watch because I'm so involved in them.
There are lots of films out there that start out looking as though they're going to be great, but don't always make it. This is almost a film that could have been remembered more for what went wrong behind the scenes and how long it took to kind of get it to the screen than actually the film itself. And you talk about that documentary that George Hickenlooper made, Hearts of Darkness, and in that it's very well documented, isn't it, about the fact that they started filming in '76 and then edited it for like over 2 years. And Walter Murch, who edited the film, also came back with Coppola and edited this. And you've actually had a recent encounter with him, haven't you?
Yeah, through a series of circumstances, I had dinner with Walter Murch, which was, honestly speaking, I couldn't claim that he was a hero of mine, but he's a legend in the business. And at the end of the dinner, he was a hero of mine, because he began talking just about the world, and it was clear that as an editor, he has this extraordinary breadth of vision as a human being. Huge humanitarian and a huge wide perspective on what it means to be a film editor and a sound designer. He, through another acquaintance, about 2 weeks ago, they said, I'm a friend of Walter Murch's. He's in London at the moment. I said, and I said, it's funny because I'm screening Apocalypse Now Redux. He said, you should ring him up, see if he wants to come along. I said, well, I'm not going to do that. Anyway, this guy emailed him, and I got a call this morning from Walter Murch. He's saying, I hear you're screening the Redux this afternoon. I said, that's right, Walter. And he then began to tell me this fantastic inside history of the film. Stuff that I'm sure many of the people here know, that it was originally George Lucas who was going to film it. And he said to Walter, in the end, I didn't get around to filming it. I went and made American Graffiti, and then I made my own version of Apocalypse Now with Star Wars in 1976. And in fact, Star Wars and Apocalypse Now started filming in exactly the same month, March 1976. They both started the same. And just hearing Walter talk about that time and the kinds of films that were being rolled out. And he said, I'd just finished working on Julia. I was going on that. I'd worked with, obviously Coppola and I knew each other from the Godfather films. It's like hearing this amazing golden age, this second Hollywood golden age that Murch was right at the centre of. And then he said, what do you want me to tell you about the film? And I said, well, tell me anything, Walter. And he said, what scenes do you like? And I said, well, my favourites, if I had to pick, I couldn't pick one favourite scene because, as I say, there's so many things that I learnt from this film and subsequently have been a big part of my life. The music, the Doors, it introduced me to the Doors, Victor Storaro, the cinematography, the book Dispatches, which the author of Dispatches obviously authored all of the voiceover in the film, and then this extraordinary range of character actors. It's an amazing performance when they give Martin Sheen his mission in this scene very early on, which I said to him, this is an amazing scene, Walter. The menace in it, and there's a guy in the scene without which it's not going to ruin the film for you. There's a guy in it from the CIA who doesn't say a single thing in the whole scene except for one line, which I'm not going to say what it is, but it's just so menacing, the whole thing. And he said, oh yeah, it was great editing that. He said it was a bit of a nightmare because the shot is shot. You are in Martin Sheen's POV for the entire scene. So you see the scene, the camera points at the three other actors who are interviewing Martin Sheen. So he is the camera. He said, and when we shot that, the actors were all nervous because the actual cameraman, the operator, was Italian, and Coppola said, anytime you get bored with the scene, refocus on an object, like that. So the Italian, who didn't speak a word of English, every now and then just drifts onto an object like that. And the three actors don't know quite when the camera's going to move. So they consequently are staring into the camera, keen to be filmed. And he said, and then then the reverse, Sheen, Sheen is looking directly into the camera at the end of that scene, which is obviously the great taboo in film. He breaks the fourth wall. And he said that scene introduces this idea that the audience is going to be Martin Sheen for the rest of the film.
Wow. And we're obviously going in with this kind of catalogue of stuff that we know about the film. Obviously, Steve McQueen and Al Pacino at one point were going to be playing the key role. Harvey Keitel, the Marlon Brando role, yeah. And then Harvey Keitel did end up playing the Martin Sheen role for a little while before he was sort of thrown off set. And then Martin Sheen himself, who was battling his own kind of demons with alcohol and so forth.
Which we see in the film.
Which we do see on the film, was kind of, I think, on the verge of a breakdown, had a massive heart attack.
And again, Coppola kept the camera rolling, as we know him from Hearts of Darkness, when he was virtually having an alcoholic breakdown. Yeah.
And had a massive heart attack, was off for about 6 weeks, but still came back again. And then Brando himself, who arrived, not the kind of the lean, hungry warrior who we were expecting, but was actually kind of pretty bloated at this point. Yes. Wasn't prepared at all. I mean, you were saying the thing about...
Walter said this morning, he said... which I think is a matter of public record from the film as well, is that Brando had shown up with this massive fee, and obviously they'd worked together on Godfather, and Brando had shown up, and he'd been asked to lose a bit of weight and read the book, neither of which he had done. And but he'd said, I don't want to read that book, I hate that book. And on about day 5, he came out with his head shaved. And Coppola said, why have you shaved all your hair off? And he said, I read the book, it's terrific. And I think, that's what makes that documentary. It's so moving in a way. Coppola, mortgaging everything to make the film work. And
all of his profits from The Godfather he put up for the film. Obviously about Hearts of Darkness. I think it's definitely a documentary that if people have seen the film now, they should definitely sort of dip their
it's a must-see.
Everybody...
Shot by his wife.
Everybody's pretty... And she narrates it, doesn't she? And with when Hickenlooper approached all the actors, pretty much all the actors agreed to do it, apart from Brando, perhaps unsurprisingly. And the quote he gave Hickenlooper, I can't do a Brando accent, is, why are you making a film about that fat fuck? He owes me $2 million. You tell that fat fuck, if he pays me the $2 million, you can film me taking a shit. The legendary Marlon.
They don't make films like that anymore, do they?